Hey everyone, name's WitherWords. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to be having some fun today playing through Dark Souls, my very first YouTube video here. And Dark Souls, people are calling it the most challenging game of this generation. Not quite sure I agree with that. Not in its full sense. Definitely a difficult game. Definitely hard. Very punishing for you. Especially if you're a new player, don't know what you're doing. But I don't know if I'd call it difficult once you know what you're doing. It's definitely a learning curve. But once you've passed the learning curve, I think all in all, you really just find a game that is very fun. Keeps you on the edge of your seat at all times. Never really lets you sit down. But eventually, not all that difficult. Now, before we start, and while you're watching the little opening cinematic here, which is pretty cool, I might add, definitely recommend watching it if you never have. I have beaten Dark Souls before. I've beaten it on New Game Plus, working on beating on New Game Plus Plus. I know what I'm doing. I'm not the best Dark Souls player ever, certainly not a pro in that sense, but I'm not a noob. I definitely know what's going on. And a lot of the things you see me do as a new player, you probably don't want to try yourself. And when I do them, I'll explain what it is and why you would not want to do it. But until we get to that point, I won't explain anything else. To make it a little more difficult on myself, and to make it more user-friendly for those watching, to make you feel like you're not watching some sort of pro game strategy guide, I'm going to be playing a class that I have never played before, and that is a faith-based class. Normally I play a melee character. Faith-based characters are kind of melee. They don't have to be, but they more often than not are. But early game, they definitely take a turn away from the melee in terms of strength and ease of play. And I'm going to be playing a faith-based class for the first time to give you guys a feel that I'm learning as I go as well. It should make it more interesting. You're going to see me die a couple times. Probably stupid deaths. Like I said, I'm not the greatest Dark Souls player. And even in my best, there are times where I will just simply screw up. And I'm okay with that. I hope you are too. And I really do hope you're watching the video right now because, I mean, just the opening cinematic is fantastic. Doesn't really give you a whole lot of story, honestly. It's very cryptic, but man, it's a lot of fun. There's Nito wielding the Gravelord sword. Most people don't seem to realize that actually is the Gravelord sword. It's a very cool sword, one you can get by joining his covenant, which we will talk about later on. So what is the purpose of the playthrough? The purpose of the playthrough is not to give you every single item that you can pick up. The purpose of the playthrough is not to show you every single shortcut you can take. The purpose of the playthrough is to show new players what's going on. The general progression path, there are other progression paths. There's what's called the advanced progression path that I will not be doing. And it requires essentially doing some things backwards, but we won't be doing that here. We're going to be showing you guys what exactly goes on at the beginning of the game and how to get through the beginning of the game. I might do a full playthrough. Really depends on the response to the video. But we'll see how that goes. If I do a full playthrough, I might take it a little more seriously. Really, I'm just screwing around here at the beginning. And you'll see that very early on when I have a really dumb death. But we'll see what the response is here. This is not a challenge run by any means. I'm not doing anything crazy. I will probably put up a challenge run video later on where I don't use a shield and dual wield. I love dual wielding in this game. I think it looks awesome. I think you look nothing short of a superhero when you parry with nothing but your left hand. It's really cool. But we're going to start here. As you can see, the opening cinematic is almost done. And I will be throwing in lore tidbits where I can find them. I'm not a huge lore buff. I don't spend a lot of time reading through the lore. If you really want some lore, I highly recommend Epic Name Bro. The guy has done a lot of work there. He knows what he's talking about. And he makes some very interesting videos. They are very cool to watch. I've watched them myself, spent a whole day watching them. He's also really good at the game too. So he's fun to watch, fun to listen to. And I definitely recommend it if you're looking into some Dark Souls lore. So here we are, we're in the Undead Northern Asylum. Undead Northern Asylum. The place where the undead are corralled. Undead being not in the traditional undead sense that you think of, zombies or such. Undead is actually just a term to mean that you can't die. As you see, corpse just got thrown in the room. Look at that guy up there, that knight. Pay good attention to him. We'll be meeting him later. He's our friend. But yeah, undead means essentially that you can't die in the traditional sense. When you die, your body will be resurrected at a bonfire. Now, I won't go too much into that lore because it can be kind of confusing, and the player character himself does break it. It doesn't apply to you in the same way that it applies to NPCs, but we won't go into all that now. For now, just understand that you're undead, you're in the undead asylum, and you need to get out. And that is what we are going to be doing right here. I unequipped the beginning weapon that I start with. If you're a new player, you don't have to. You can kill these beginning few guys that you meet. They'll give you like 20 souls each. Souls are your experience points. You definitely do want them. But 20 souls is not a lot, and the broken sword hilt that you start with will be immediately replaced by the weapon that your class begins with. And I'll show you that later. Here we have bonfires. Bonfires are the resurrection points of the game. Whatever bonfire you last rested at, consider that your save point, your checkpoint. Whenever you die, you'll go back to that bonfire, barring a few very rare occasions. Here's our first boss of the game, Asylum Demon. If you're a new player, please, 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 don't try to kill that guy. Just run into the door like I did. He will own you. It is possible to kill him right off the bat, but you need to be an advanced player. You need to know what you're doing. And if you're new to the game, just ignore him, run through that door like I did, and keep going, rest of the bonfire if you want. You don't have to, but I did. This hallway here is the beginning weapons hallway. Whatever your class is will determine what weapons and shield you find in the hallway there. I'm a cleric, so I found an east-west shield and a good old-fashioned mace. You see me doing a nice backstab there. I'll explain that later in more detail. But whatever class you are will determine what items you get there. Thief, you get like a bandit knife at the end. I think if you're a warrior, you get a straight sword. You see the first trap of the game there. When you run up those stairs, a boulder gets thrown down. You just jump off the stairs. Or if you're a little more pro, you might want to run. Here's our first NPC of the game. You don't have to talk to him, actually. If you don't want, you could just walk in there, swing your weapon, kill him in one hit. Like I'm going to do after a couple fail attempts right here. There we go. He's dead now. And he'll give you 100 souls. Worth killing, I would say. He doesn't do anything in the game. He actually respawns and you'll fight him later, oddly enough. But if you're interested in lore, you can talk to him. He gives you your Estus flasks, which consider them like healing potions in any RPG. You get a limited amount, but they renew every time you rest at a bonfire. You see me get my canvas talisman there. I'll explain what talismans are. Well, I'll explain it right now. There are 3 forms of non-physical attacks. By that I mean not melee. You have your miracles, you have sorcery, and you have pyromancy. Each sort of non-physical attack requires the use of a weapon type. I guess weapon type's the best I can describe it as. You see my guy parrying there. I was going to explain parrying. I'm not going to explain it right now. I'll wait till later. But that's why he was going a little schizo there. The talisman is the miracle weapon. To cast a miracle, you have to have a talisman equipped. Now we're going to fight the Asylum Demon. You can see I jumped down top of his head. When you jump down, you want to hit the fast attack button, or some people call it normal attack. If you do, you'll do a plunging attack on the enemy below you, as I did. As you saw, it did a lot of damage to him. If you don't, you will just continue to fall, and you will hit the ground and take a good chunk of your damage, and if you're a new player, you'll probably die. I almost died there, because quite honestly, that was some pathetic playing. But I did end up killing him. But anyway, back to our non-physical damage. Sorcery is cast through a catalyst. We'll pick one of those up later. We won't be using it, but you will find them throughout the game. Pyromancy is cast through a Pyromancer's glove. Pyromancers, I believe, are the only class that can get a glove early on. They start with it. It's very, very overpowered. And if you're a new player, it's not a bad class to start with. You do get one later when you save a certain character, which we will be saving him later, and I'll show you when we get to him. And now that we've beaten Undead Northern Asylum here, we are going to be leaving it's the tutorial area. We're going to be leaving the tutorial area and taking a ride on a giant crow, if you watch the video. But since we're playing a faith-based character, we'll be using miracles quite often. Talismans are your miracle weapon. You have to have a talisman equipped to cast a miracle. Doesn't matter which hand it's in. It can be in your left or it can be in your right. That's up to you. But you do have to have one equipped. We'll be using miracles quite often. So we need to keep some sort of talisman on hand at all times. I'll explain a little more when we get to them about Magic Adjust. Well, you know what, we're riding a crow right now, why not? Magic Adjust is applied to every weapon that casts. It's based off different things for every weapon. I believe that catalysts all go with intelligence, and I believe that all talismans, except for one, I think, are based off faith. See, I'm reversing my hollowing here. When you reverse hollowing, you get your skin color back. I'm playing offline. If I were playing online, I would also open myself up to invasions and allow myself to summon other players who are playing online. I'm not playing online though, so the only thing I'm going to be able to do is summon NPCs at certain points and be invaded by certain NPCs at points. These are things that can happen whether you're online or offline. That doesn't matter, and I'll be going through them as we find them. But for the most part, online, if you're new to the game playing online, I recommend not going human until you're comfortable with the way things work. Yes, it could be a little harder on bosses without a summon, but honestly, the only way I can explain it is like this. If you do go human, be prepared to die to invasions often early on. It's just going to happen. Most people in this game are going to be better than you. And when they come in, they'll beat you. So just be ready for that. You can see me talking here to Petrus of Thorland. When you start the game, if you're any other class than a cleric, I think any other class than a cleric, you will have no covenant. Covenants are sort of your guilds, and they can give you certain benefits. This guy here gives you the Way of White Covenant. It's actually a fairly worthless covenant, but when you talk to him about entering it, you can gain access to his miracles. Playing a faith-based class, his miracles are very useful to me. I can't afford any of them yet, as you can see. They require an insane amount of souls. But later on, I will come back and probably buy some. And no matter what you do, please, please do not buy a talisman from that guy. I'll show you why in a second here, but please do not buy a talisman. Starting as a cleric, I don't need one, obviously. But if you were interested in playing some faith later on with a character that didn't start with talisman, I'm going to show you right here how you can get one without buying one. This is a little secret area that most people don't know about. This stuff here is not fantastic, but the homeward bones are nice. Homeward bones are like your resets. Whatever bonfire you last rested at, the homeward bone will take you back to it. It will also reset all enemies. When you die or when you rest at a bonfire, 99% of the enemies in the game will respawn, with the exception of a bare few who never respawn. Keep that in mind whenever you're playing. It can be helpful. It can also be very, very bad if you're having trouble with an area. So always keep that in mind. I'm going to use a homeward bone here to get back. Below me was the graveyard. The enemies in there are skeletons. They're fairly tough, especially early on. And I'm already going to have a pretty embarrassing death here. So I didn't really want to go down and add any more deaths to it. There is what's called the graveyard run. And I don't remember if I do the graveyard run or not with this guy. I don't think I do. The graveyard run is essentially you run through the graveyard with the intention of dying. Actually, I do make the graveyard run. Yeah, so we'll see that in a second here. But I recommend before you do the graveyard run, you come up where I am, and I'll show you why in a second after a very embarrassing death. But in a second, I'll show you there's something called a ring of sacrifice. Ring of sacrifice allows you to die without losing anything. If you're a new player, please, I ask you right now, please turn away, because what you're going to see is very embarrassing. If you're a veteran player, by all means, point and laugh, point and laugh. Yes, I'm going to die to the rat. I will be the first to say I'm not a pro, but I am also not used to the hammer weapons, as evidenced right there. I don't even know what to say, folks. That was just really bad. But for you new players, if you want, take that as a good sign, because I did not cut it out of the game. I will be showing you my playthrough all the way through. Now I'm speeding up, just because you don't want to see me go kill these all again. But on this bridge over here is where the Ring of Sacrifice is. You just jump across. Do not roll. Please do not roll. You'll just kill yourself. Screw you, rat. Vengeance is mine. If you roll, you will end up dying. So please don't roll. Do a running jump. You do a jump by holding the run button and then letting go of it and tapping it real quick. That'll send you on a jump. If you wait too long, you'll do a roll. So make sure that you do the running jump. Do not wait too long. Practice it a bit before you try. The Ring of Sacrifice is no good to you if you constantly die while trying to get it. So you see I equipped it here. I'm getting ready to make my graveyard run. I'm getting the last couple secret items that are in Firelink Shrine. Firelink Shrine is like your hub. I don't know the lore behind it. I don't know what it was supposed to be before. Later on we'll see a very important NPC here, and most NPCs come to this area, but I don't know what the importance of it was supposed to be in terms of the area itself. It's a cool little area, but you know, if anyone knows the lore behind it, by all means, post it in the comments. I'd be interested to hear. So you see we're getting ready for the graveyard run. Watch carefully. If you're going to attempt it, just do exactly what I do. You do not want to engage these skeletons, especially if you're a new player. If you're an advanced player, maybe you do want to engage them. Maybe you know what you're doing and you can kill them. That's fine. I could kill them if I wanted to, but I don't want to. We're just going to do the graveyard suicide run. There's some interesting weapons here. The winged spear is okay if you're a dex character and want to use a spear. The Zweihander, that is the epic weapon of the game. It's a very powerful weapon. You probably won't be able to wield it for a bit, but once you can, it's very useful. As you can see, I tried to bait that giant skeleton over, and I won. That skeleton is worth 500 souls, which is a lot of souls early on. And if you can bait him to come running off, I definitely recommend you try. It's worth it, and since I'm going to have my Ring of Sacrifice on here, I will not be losing any souls when I die, so it's definitely worth it to try to get him to jump off. I also tried to kill these skeletons here. Uh, as you can see, I'm going to fail. And fail. At the bottom of the, well, not the bottom, in the middle of the screen there, you saw a little meter was filling up. That is the status meter. It goes up for curse, bleed, poison, and toxic. They were putting bleeds on me. I'm speeding up here to get through me popping some souls. You don't want to watch me do that. It's not all that fun. But when you have bleed or poison or toxic, that meter will fill up. When it hits full, the status of whatever it is that was filling up will be applied. For bleed, it usually will take off 30% of your health. That varies depending on the enemy and the weapon. I believe certain enemies, as you see, I'm raising my faith up. This is not an overpowered run. I'm not going to be raising strength, dex, endurance, all that right away. If I really wanted to cheese the game and show you guys how to run through it easy, I could. But I'm going to be leveling like pretty much all faith. And we'll see what happens with that. It's going to gimp me a little bit, especially since I'm not used to playing it. But, well, that's the fun of it, right? So, what were we talking about before? What were we talking about before? Well, I've completely forgotten what we were talking about before. And I will probably have to go back through and edit to add in whatever I was talking about. So now that we've completed everything that we really want to complete in the bottom area of Firelink Shrine, and there are more ways to go from Firelink Shrine. You can go down, or you can keep going through the graveyard to the catacombs. If you're a new player, I don't recommend doing either of them, especially going down, because if you go down, you'll meet the ghosts, and the ghosts early on will just absolutely destroy you. So we went up. Going up puts you in the Undead Burg. See me do some fail parrying here. There we go, got one. The Undead Burg is the general beginner's path. The enemies here are not that tough. The path itself leads you to the easier bosses, and it's the way I recommend going if you're new. I suppose I should explain parrying now in a little more detail. You're going to see me do it a lot. When you parry an enemy, it works similar to like if you were to parry something in real life, but not quite. Enemies have what's called the parry frame, which is a certain point in their attack animation where they can be parried. This frame differs per weapon and per enemy. Some weapons are very quick and very hard to parry, to the point where I might even recommend you don't even bother. I can think of like the Painting Guardians in Anor Londo, which we'll see later. Those are enemies which, if you're new to the game, I would just recommend you block, block, block until you can get a shot in. Other enemies are easier. How you parry is, for me, I'm using controller. I always recommend you use a controller if you're playing the PC version. It's just a lot easier. I can't think of any reason to use a keyboard and mouse other than you just, for some reason, have a love affair with your keyboard. I mean, that's the only reason I can think not to use a gamepad. I use an Xbox controller, so for me, parrying is the left trigger. And how you want to set parrying up is you want to wait until, for most enemies, you want to wait until it looks like they're just getting ready to put out the swing. Imagine it like if you were holding a weapon in your hand and you were just tensing the muscles to fire the weapon at your enemy. That's roughly the time when you want to hit that parry button. Now, it's like I said, it's different for every weapon type, and there are some weapon types you just have to get used to. They're hard. And even if you're great at the game, there are going to be times where you screw up. I screw up all the time on my parrying. I don't recommend rolling backwards like I did just there if you're new to the game, because as you can see, there's no railing to either side, and I could very easily have fallen off. So watch out for that. When you parry, you are invincible. This is very, very useful when you are surrounded by multiple mobs and you can get a parry in. It can really give you some breathing room. in this doorway here, if you want, is a wooden shield. Uh, it's actually fairly useful. I'm not going to use it, and I'll show you why. There is something called, there are tiers to your weights in this game. There's 25%, 50%, 75, and high. If you have 25% or less equipment weight, you will be able to run very fast. And wow, that was some real fail play right there with her. You can run very fast, and you can roll very fast. This is very useful in certain areas, and if you're an advanced player, odds are you want that. You want to be able to run and roll fast, because you probably won't be relying on a shield as much. I enjoy it even when I have a shield, but if you're a new player, you might want to get used to the mid-range, which is the 25 to 50% area. The mid-range will give you a decent amount of speed and a decent amount of rolling ability without crippling you too much. I don't recommend trying the heavy, which is 75% weight, or 50% weight, no, I'm sorry. The reason for that is when you roll in heavy, you essentially stun yourself for a split second, and even, especially in PvP, you don't want it, but even most enemies in the game will hit you once or twice if you do that. If you go heavy, you're essentially saying that I don't want to roll, I just want to tank everything in the game. That's fine. If you want to do that, you can do that. But if you're new to the game, I recommend the 50% build load. With the exception of if you want to use like the Stone Guardian armor, Havel's armor, which we'll find later. But if you have under 25%, you can do the quick roll. That's why I didn't switch to the new shield we got. Even though technically it's a little better, it would have put me just at the mid-roll, which I don't want. I want the fast roll, because, well, it's faster. So we killed all the enemies out in the area here. We went to our little secret area. That guy we talked to was a merchant. I recommend buying the residence key from him. It's useful. It opens up another NPC later, and I just recommend buying that, and that alone, really, if you're new to the game. The exception being maybe the short bow and the arrows if you want the Drake sword. We're not going to get the Drake sword. If you're interested in the Drake sword, there are plenty of videos up on YouTube. Go check it out. It's definitely a powerful weapon early on, but we're not going to get it because we want to show you guys what's going on without being overpowered. We're going to kindle this bonfire here. Kindling is like adding to your potions at every bonfire that you kindle. When you kindle a bonfire initially, it puts it to 10 Estus flasks per rest. So every time I rest at that bonfire, I will have 10 Estus flasks. You can kindle further, getting an item later on in the game. We will talk about that when we get to it. But if you're a new player, I recommend kindling any bonfire you come to, really, if you're in human form. You have to be in human form to kindle, so you need some humanity. But having those 10 flasks is helpful, especially if you're new to the game. Advanced players tend not to kindle. If I were doing an advanced playthrough, I probably wouldn't bother. But for this playthrough, I'm pretending that I am a new player to the game, and that I do know what's going on, but I'm pretending that I am playing as if I don't know what's going on, if you understand what I'm saying there. So we're going to keep going here. We killed some guys. We're on our way to the first boss of the game. Had some little more fail parry there. Parrying is dangerous, folks, especially versus tougher enemies. If you fail to parry, you can die. Even to the very easy enemies in this game, like you saw just a few seconds ago. I almost died to one of the hollows. Hollows are very easy, but if you miss a parry, they can get some shots on you, and you could be dead. I thought about using the short sword here, because as you can see, I'm really bad with the hammer, but I don't have the dexterity to use the short sword yet, so I'm stuck with my mace. I may go back later and get some dexterity just so I can use a sword. I'm not playing a paladin class by any means. I'm just playing a faith-based class. I'm not limiting myself really, but for the moment I'm stuck not being able to. As you can see, I'm not John Elway apparently, because I missing quite often with these firebomb throws. Firebombs are very useful items, but I don't recommend buying them from the merchants if you're a new player. They, you tend to make more mistakes with them than not, and they can actually get you killed quite easily if you don't know what you're doing. See how I take a little step forward when I throw? People often want to use these to kill enemies from a safe point, such as the top of a cliff. The problem is they don't realize that when you throw a firebomb, you step forward. And I have seen so many deaths of people who just thought, oh, I'll throw this firebomb down on the guy and I'll be fine. And then they take one step too many and they're dead. So use the firebombs you got by all means, but don't rely on them. Don't buy them. Just leave them at the NPCs who have them. You don't need them. You can use them for certain situations, and I'll show you here in a second one situation. But I just don't recommend getting used to them. And as you can see, right now I'm doing a backstab. Backstabs are similar to the parry riposte. I don't know if I said that right. If I didn't, well, sue me. I don't really care. The parrying hits an enemy essentially with a backstab to the front. It gives you invincibility frames, yada yada, major damage. Backstabbing is the same thing done on the back, obviously, and it's much better than the parrying if you can get it, because it's easier. You don't have to parry anything, you just have to hit the light attack while you're standing directly behind an enemy. Now, there are nuances to this. There are times when an enemy will, say, do a lunging attack, and it will look like you're right behind him, but technically, in terms of hitbox, you're actually slightly to the side. If that's the case, you'll just end up doing a regular attack on him. Also, if you can't hit an enemy with a backstab while you are holding your shield up, you have to put your shield down to be able to do a backstab. That's one of the hardest things for new players to get used to. See, I used a firebomb there. And you just saw me parry the Black Knight. If you're a new player, I really don't recommend that. I recommend blocking if you have 100% block shield. Those Black Knights can kill you in 2 hits. And if you miss your parry, you open yourself up to what's called a counter. A counter is the frames right after a swing that missed, or right after a parry that missed, and maybe even after being kicked. I'm not sure about that one. But essentially, you take more damage when that happens. And it counts for you as well as NPCs. So if I had, say, tried to parry the Black Knight there, missed, and been hit by that lunging attack that he had, I very well could have been dead. Thankfully I didn't. I looked like a pro. But that can happen. You see me here, I have a little bit of indecision. There's a guy at the bottom of this tower called Havel. He has a ring called Havel's Ring, which gives you a bunch of endurance and is very useful to new players. I thought about going to get it, but then I remembered that a lot of new players might not pick the Master Key as their beginning key, as their beginning gift. So I decided, you know what, let's forego it for now. We'll pretend like you didn't, and we won't get it. And so we went through the boss fog there. Traversing the white light does not always bring you into a boss area. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. For this one it did. You'll notice when you go into a boss area, the fog gate stays up when you go in. And I'll talk about the Minotaur here. The Minotaur comes down when you get to a certain point along the ramp. I actually forgot that I was fighting the Minotaur boss there and ran headlong in and nearly ran right into his stomach. The easiest way to do this is to get him to jump down, go back to the ladder that we just cleared enemies on, put the gold pine resin on that we had picked up earlier, jump down, hit him with it, don't do what I did and roll away right into his attack, but then just start wailing on him with your gold pine electricity weapon. It's very, very powerful. He's very weak to it, and you'll kill him in a few hits. You really don't even need the plunging attack if you don't want. You just need to dodge 1 or 2 of his attacks. And that's really a good point to talk about rolling, I suppose. When you roll, or dodge. People call it different things. I'll call it roll. When you roll, there is a certain point in your roll where you are invincible, and that is really at the very beginning of your roll. If you line up your roll to coincide with an enemy's attack, you won't be hit by that attack. You will be invincible. This is very, very useful when fighting enemies. Advanced players will use this almost exclusively. When I play without a shield, that's what I'll use as my quote-unquote shield. So you really need to get good at rolling. As you see here, I'm talking to an NPC named Solaire. Solaire, also known as the Sun Bro, is Covenant Master of the Sun Bros. The Sun Bros are co-op Covenant. They have gold appearance. You'll find them if you're playing online. You'll quite often find them in front of bosses as summons, and we'll go over summons when I get to them. But the main reason you want to talk to Solaire when you first get up to him is for the white soapstone. You want to do what I did, talk to him constantly, say yes to both times once you get to that point. And it'll give you the white soapstone. The white soapstone on online play allows you to be summoned. It's very useful if you want to play some co-op. There are other ways to be summoned, but as far as I know, they all involve you being an enemy to the person who's summoning you. So if you want to play co-op, you need the white soapstone, and I definitely recommend picking it up. Obviously, I'm playing offline, so it's not going to help me, but I did want to show you where it was. So we've rested, put some more points in faith. What you're going to see me do here, if you're a new player, is not necessary. There's another path that I'm not going to take, but at the bottom of the bridge below me, there's another door that leads along the bottom of the bridge, and will lead to this area that I'm going to here in a second. All you have to do to get to it is kill a couple minor enemies. It's not hard. You can figure it out for yourself, trust me. But the reason I'm doing this is I need to get past this guy to... I'm playing with fire here by picking up items, because this guy can't kill you in one hit. But I need to get past this guy to be able to join Solaire's Covenant. There's a reason I want to join Solaire's Covenant, and you'll see it in a minute. But joining Solaire's Covenant gives you perhaps the most overpowered miracle that you can get for such an early area. And really, getting past the dragon is not that hard. You just gotta wait for him to come down, like I did, and then run beneath his legs. You need 25 faith, I believe, to join the Sunbros. So make sure you got that in mind when you come up here. As you can see, I'm joining the Covenant here, the Warriors of Sunlight, and I got the Miracle Lightning Spear. Yes, the Miracle Lightning Spear. This miracle is just so ridiculously overpowered. It is just the best miracle that you can get at this point, I believe. And playing a faith-based character, I need all the help I can get, so I'm going to grab it. We're nearing the end of the video here. I don't want to go too long, but I hope you've seen the basics of the area. And this is my first video. If you have any comments that you'd like to leave on making it a little better, let me know. What I'm doing right now is I'm going out to kill these guys because I need another attunement slot. Attunement slots allow you to slot more magic, and I don't have enough to slot the sunlight without removing heal. So I am going to be killing these guys to get the little bit of soul XP that I need to be able to slot one more attunement point and get one more attunement slot. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm going to continue the video here soon. We've just barely scratched the surface of Dark Souls. If you're a new player, you probably reached this point on your own already. And you're probably saying, hey, I can do all that. That's not that hard. Show me something worthwhile. Well, hang on tight, folks. We'll be getting to some worthwhile stuff next time we come through. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.